Hi everybody, welcome back to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel. And the gun we're going to look at today is something a little bit different. It was always on my hit list to try and source one to try and show it you. And those that are regular watchers of the channel will recall that early on when I did a Miroku review, I did say that I would try and bring you different models from around the globe and I would explain the differences and why they were produced for different markets alongside what we got here in the UK. And this is a classic example. So this is a Miroku 9000 Sporter. Gun was manufactured in 1993. At that time in the UK, we had the Miroku 6000, 7000 and the 3800. So they were the predecessors to the now current MK60, MK70 and MK38. This gun was built, I believe, solely for the Australian market. Now, those Miroku fans that will have been on the internet and looked at various websites will have no doubt come across the Australian and the New Zealand Miroku ranges. Now, they are phenomenally different to what we get here in the UK, different barrel configurations, different chokes, different stock dimensions. They have different model numbers. They've got MK10, ML11, very, very different. Now, it's my understanding, because I know that although Miroku is growing in popularity, certainly in the United States from the people that I'm talking to and also in Canada, that apart from the UK and possibly maybe France, because Browning Miroku is big over there, I would imagine that Australia and New Zealand is probably one of the bigger markets for Miroku because they are extremely popular. I've got a lot of Australian contacts and they're always saying to me that they outsell a lot of the more mainstream Berettas, etc. over there in those countries. So Miroku 9000, I believe the reason we have it here in the UK, something along the lines of, and this is by no way fact, this is just my interpretation of what I believe may have happened, is that someone from Browning Miroku, a representative for the importers, was perhaps at a show. There's a big one in Germany each year called EWA in Nuremberg, was over there, saw this gun and said, oh, that's nice, we could sell that in the UK, can we have some? And as a result of that, a very small number of these appeared in the UK. Before I move on to the gun, I just want to make a point that during my time in the gun trade, which I'm still technically in, let's not forget that, a lot of people always said to me, I really like nice wood, but I'm not that bothered about the engraving. And this is where that gun fits in because it is so different. Now, one of the Australian friends I was talking about, Mr. Miroku Sullivan, a bit of a plug there for him, very kindly has sent me a number of Australian adverts for Australian spec Mirokus. And here we've got one for the 9000 from, I assume, 1993, but it's certainly around about that period for the 9000. And it quite clearly states that this is a grade 1 gun with presentation walnut. So what you're essentially getting, if we look at it from UK point of view, you're getting a grade 1 action with really, really high-end wood. And a lot of people like that because a lot of people aren't that bothered about the engraving, but they do like nice woodwork, they do like nice furniture. And I think here in the UK in particular, we are obsessed with good wood. From the start, with it being a 1993 gun, this has got chopper lump barrels. So what I mean by that is that the barrels are of a one-piece construction, whereas today what manufacturers do is they get the lumps and they sleeve the tubes into the lumps simply because it's more cost effective. It's a cheaper way of manufacture. So to get one with chopper lump barrels, excellent, excellent quality. There are a number of differences and I want to talk to you about all of them. So essentially, if you look at the style of the action, it's the deep body action, and you would say it looks more like a Browning than a Miroku. Now that's because with this engraving pattern, it's quite similar to a sort of 325, 425-ish grade 3. It certainly doesn't look on the face of it like a grade 1 engraving because there's a bit more going on. You know, you've got some pheasantinos on the one side and some duckaroons on there and some kind of snipey woodcock on the bottom. They're technical terms. You know, please feel free to Wikipedia them. And BC Miroku 9000 on the bottom. Nice bit of scroll, really nice, tasteful game scene without going over the top. Not deep scroll, quite an understated looking gun. But at first glance, like I said, most people would think this is a Browning, but it's not. Secondly, the guns that we got in the UK at that period, we're looking to early 1990s, were 30-inch. If you get a 6000 or a 7000 of that period, they were 30-inch. If you go back a bit before then, they did 29-inch. Now this, interestingly enough, is 29.5 inches. Again, at that time, if you bought a Beretta in the UK, I think they were moving on to full 30s. Certainly the Europeans have always had a bit of an obsession with 29.5-inch. Perazzi manufacture a number of guns still today in 29.5-inch. They're the ones that really stick in my head. And again, if you go back 80s, 90s, Berettas were 29.5-inch. And I think even later than that, I think the 20 gauges were 29.5-inch. So what else is different? We've got a 10mm sporting rib. That's not unusual. With a tramline, centre beam, so it's standard Browning Miroku tackle, if you like. But what people will notice is that the barrels are ventilated. Now, the only gun up until this point that had been imported into the UK with a Browning Miroku badge on it with ventilated barrels, has a mouthful in it, was a Browning GTI. Everything else had got a solid centre rib. Now, I'm a big fan of ventilated barrels because in terms of obviously cooling down quicker, what they're designed for, and also the balance, they are a big plus point for me. Now this gun, despite being off the shelf, so to speak, balances perfectly on the hinge pin, whereas if you bought a modern day MK70, which I'm going to show you in a second, they are always barrel heavy. So I think there's a lot that's right about this gun. Yes, you could argue that the fact that it's got slightly shorter barrels than 30-inch may contribute to that. Fair enough. Invector multi-choke, because this was kind of before the eventuality of Invector Plus, so it's 18.5 bore barrels, manual safety as you would expect. Now, moving on to the woodwork, this is quite interesting. I'm going to put the gun back together. So we talked about the grade of the wood, which is, according to the Australian advert, we'll just go back to this. So in 1993, approximately, this gun was $1,899 as a grade 1. Now, according to my calculations, don't quote me on that, that's about 950-ish pounds, which in 1993 was quite a few quid, which again, that may be why there's not many of these around, because again, it was always the Miroku was the poorer cousin. You wouldn't open a sporting gun magazine and see an advert for Miroku. You couldn't buy a lot of merchandise from Miroku. It was all Browning, Browning, Browning. I believe that Browning would have been a much bigger presence, certainly in terms of advertising, marketing, etc., than Miroku, including this one. So we've got here, we'll go through the features as per the advert. Ventilated barrels we talked about. Adjustable wide crisp trigger. Now that's a standard Browning checkered trigger. If you bought a GTI, for example, or a 325 at the time, both guns were manufactured from Browning, you would have got 3 triggers. So you will get a little skinny trigger, one that had got a bit of a swage on it, which was better for a right-handed shooter, and also the standard sort of checkered adjustable trigger. Adjustable that you can move it backwards and forwards in 3 positions, no dissimilar to a 525 and MK38 that you would buy today. Presentation grade walnut, and this is for me is where it really ticks all the boxes, because it's an absolutely stunning looking gun, but it's understated because of the action. It doesn't scream out, oh look at me, I've got loads of scroll on. Vector choke system. Now this is the next bit, palm swell. The only Miroku that I can recall that's been imported into the UK, certainly in the last 30 plus years, that's got a factory palm swell is an MK38 trap adjustable. Now, the case in point there is that the MK38 trap adjustable, particularly in grade 5, available in grade 1 and grade 5, was actually a Browning XT stock. So it wasn't really, technically, although it's manufactured in the same factory, a Miroku stock. But I can't remember any sporter, MK38, 60, 70, 6,000, 7,000, that's got a palm swell on. Now, for me, a competition gun, a sporting gun, should have a palm swell because it gives you a much better hand position. And if I pick this up, and I've not got particularly big hands, that feels really nice. Not a massive palm swell, but it just sits nicely in the hand and gives me a really, really comfortable hold position. I like that. Really, really good. Double point checker in. It's classy. It's traditional. It makes it look like a shotgun, which is what it should look like. And then we've got, on this particular model, no question what you would get today on a grade 5 MK38 at £3,500+ for a new one. Very, very nicely figured American walnut. You know, lots and lots of figure running through it all the way through. Yes, it's got a few marks on it, but underneath this kind of original lacquered finish, you've got a really, really nice piece of wood. Interestingly enough, as you go through the head, it's very plain, which again, that gives you strength, and that's what you want from a competition shotgun. The butt pad, again, something you will not have seen on a UK spec Miroku, and I keep referring to UK spec Mirokus because I am in the UK. This chamfered ventilated recoil pad, to be fair, I quite like. I'm not a fan of the plastic butt plates because I think that they toe out and they're uncomfortable to shoot, particularly for a new shooter. And the modern MK38 Sporter pad is basically just a piece of a Dunlop tyre on the back. It doesn't offer any recoil absorption whatsoever, and also it's quite sticky when you mount it. With this chamfered top, it's no snag when you mount it, and also you've got a little bit of recoil absorption. Another interesting point, we have talked about this before, but if you look on the back strap where the serial number is, you've also got the little hallmark, which again denotes better quality steel. Not that you need better quality steel in these because they are absolutely bulletproof regardless. Now, I spoke very briefly earlier about the difference between this in terms of the balance and what you would achieve from a current model Miroku. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the difference. I'm going to compare it to an MK70, which I've got here. So here we have an MK70, a bit newer, about 2003. First difference you'll notice is we spoke about barrel length. Okay, so we've got 30-inch. It's a little tiny bit longer than the barrels. It's not ventilated. The checkering is, without a doubt, more modern looking. I'm not a fan of it, if I'm honest. I'd much prefer the double point. And also, if you look at the dimensions in terms of the radius of the pistol grip, there's a little bit of difference there. I haven't measured it. I can do no problem. But because it's got the palm as well, it sweeps back a bit further and it just gives you a much better hand position. I find the MK70 a little bit short in the pistol grip. Again, that's just my personal preference. Now let's move on to the balance. The MK70 weighs 7 pounds 9 ounces. The 9000 weighs 7 pounds 12 ounces. Despite being heavier, and I believe because of the vented barrels, the 9000 feel is exactly on the hinge pin. Look at that, okay? The MK70, which has always been a bit of a bugbear of this particular model, is, without a doubt, barrel heavy. Interesting in that it's lighter, but it's more barrel heavy. The 9000, heavier, balances on the hinge pin. Difficult to tell exactly why. You know, is there a bit more weight in the stock because it's got grade 5 European walnut on? Is it the ventilated barrels? Is it a combination of the two? Who knows? But for me, the 9000 is an absolute cracking little gun. If you can get your hands on one, I would urge that you do it. They did do a grade 5. I'll revert back to the Australian advert from Mike O'Sullivan. Thank you very much, Mike. Which was a chunk more money. I've only ever seen one in the UK. It was 29.5 inch. It was a sporter, and it was owned by a good friend of mine who used to work for Laravel Express cartridges. Never seen another one. I can only assume, again, because you could buy a high grade Browning, which came in a fancy case with more chokes than 3, which is what these were typically supplied with, rather than 5 or 6 with a Browning, that nobody bought them because the Browning was, pitched at a higher level, and that is my personal opinion. Trap guns, although they're mentioned on this particular advert, never seen one in the UK. Wouldn't have a clue if ever were imported, especially not with Monte Carlo stock, which is a shame because I do like Monte Carlo stocks. Just to finish up, we've got a little bit of something that goes with the 9000, which is, I always try and find guns that have got a little bit of history or a little bit of paperwork attached to them, even if it is something as small as an inspection certificate. So this is the 9000. It says that it's in vector choke. It's got 750 mil, of course, the barrel length, which, in old-fashioned English is 29.5 inch, 760 is 30 inch, the serial number and the caliber, etc. And it says there quite clearly, 9000 Sport Grade 1. Now, I won't say I've seen a number of these guns because there's not many about, but when I tend to see one in the UK, this particular model, which is a Grade 1, is always advertised as a Grade 5 because the wood is so good. So it would appear based on that a lot of dealers or people that have got them don't actually know what they are. Again, it's something different. You've got a hell of a gun manufactured 30 years ago, still going strong, standard Browning profile in terms of dependability, durability and strength. But you've got the addition of the palm, so you've got the vented barrels, which enhances the balance. And you've also got, in a Grade 1 gun, an absolutely stunning piece of wood. Now, I can recall a couple of different manufacturers doing models whereby, you know, they've put better wood on a different style, on a basic, more plainer action. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they want to sell them. You know, when a car manufacturer gets to the end of its run, oh, we can't sell these, let's put some bigger wheels on it, let's put some sport seats in it, let's put an iPod in it, whatever. But for me, this is not the case because these guns are so rare. And it is a different gun, it is understated. I really like it. Really pleased to be able to show it to you. This particular gun is going to Cyprus, so it won't be here for long. If you've got any questions on the Miroku 9000, or again, any other Mirokus, I'm a huge Miroku fan, hit me with your questions. I regularly get emails from all over the world. Can you identify this? What's this worth? When was this manufactured? I'm always happy to help. Aside of that, review requests, again, we get a lot of them. We're filling up our book, trying to bring them to you as fast as we can. Something you want to see, get in touch, let me know about it. Thanks for watching. That's Miroku 9000. I'll see you next time. Bye.